guys, I hope you enjoyed that full day of eating. Now, if that's all that you came to the video to see, feel free to click out. But I wanted to include about 7 tips that I wanted to share with you guys about tracking and meal planning. Just some tips that I think would be really helpful for you guys. So number 1 I wrote down is I use MyFitnessPal to track. It's easy, it's free. Now with the free option, you cannot put in your individual macros. So I suggest going on a desktop, so get on a computer and set your caloric goal to 0. So everything will say 0 across the board, and then it'll just say the negative calories of what you have, because that'll be way less confusing. So when you do that, just focus on your overall macro goal. Now, sometimes nutrition labels are incorrect, or say that something is 104 calories. For marketing techniques, they'll put it's a 100-calorie snack. So it counts the calories not exactly correct. But if you want to look at, say, your goal is 200 grams of carbs. 1 carb is 4 calories. So 200 carbs is 800 calories. So at the end of the day, if you hit your carb goal, if you hit the 200 number, that will always equal 800. The math will always add up. So hit your macro goals. My second tip for you guys is with meal planning. So what I do is I actually do it every single morning because I happen to have enough time. If you don't, do it every single night. But what I do is every morning I'll say, okay, what do I want to eat for meal number 1? That means, what do I want to eat right now? I plan that meal out, and then I say, what do I want my very last meal to be? The last meal of the day, which you guys know, as you just saw, is my nightly ice cream with some toppings. So I plan in the first and the last meal of the day, and then I work my way in from there. And usually those meals are getting my micronutrients in, getting my fiber in, making sure that I time my carbs properly so that I can fuel my workouts. And maybe that means having a little less carbs at breakfast so I have more carbs pre-workout so I have energy for my workout. So hopefully that helps you with planning your meals. The third tip I have for you guys is every single night after you finish your last meal of the day, ask yourself, was I satisfied from today? Was there something I could have done differently? Did I use too many macros at breakfast and then I was hungry throughout the day? Or, did I not have enough food and I was starving all day long because I was trying to macro hoard for too many toppings in my ice cream, and then I was starving all day and it was like hard, and then I just ate it and I was still hungry. So ask yourself those questions, reassess, and then you can plan for the next day. There was one time, for example, well, I say one time, it was like a week, where I was making coffee and having my frozen Power Crunch bar, and then I would have that while I was making meal number 1, so I'd basically have that and meal number 1, and then like my food wasn't lasting throughout the day, like there wasn't enough food to go around. So I started making myself have my coffee with meal number 1, and then I would wait and have my Power Crunch bar as a snack, so like its own separate, meal time. So I'd have meal number 1, wait a little while, and then snack, and then wait a while, and then another meal. So there's way more time between meals that way, which just makes my food last longer throughout the day. I did make a second cup of coffee so that I could dip the Power Crunch bar in the coffee. Tip number 4, macro adjustments. People ask, when should I change my macros? Something I always did with my clients when they would check in is I would say, okay, how many days out of the week were you consistent? And it would say 6 of 7, 7 of 7, 4 of 7, 5 of 7, and they would have to choose which one they did. So that means I hit my macros, 5 out of 7 days. My suggestion is, if you're looking for very good consistency, that would be 6 out of 7 days. Now, as far as like what counts as hitting your macros, I would say anywhere from like 5, maybe 5 to 8 grams if you're not in bikini prep. So like 5 to 8 grams of proteins and carbs, and then like 1 to 5 grams is pushing it, max for fats. So if you're within that range for 6 of 7 days, I would consider that a very consistent week, and then you can decide to make changes. However, if you're hitting your macros every week and you look at the week and you see, I only actually stayed within my range 4 out of 7 days, that's not very consistent to me, and that's not giving your body time to adjust to those macro numbers. And if you're not even hitting those numbers, you don't know if they work, so you don't need to make changes yet. Number 1 is just be consistent. Now, if you're someone who is constantly second-guessing yourself and you're not sure if you should be making adjustments or not, something I recommend people to is the site Avatar Nutrition, created by Dr. Layne Norton. Dr. Layne Norton's like the macro guru. He kind of like introduced it into the industry. I learned pretty much everything that I know through him, and the articles that he shares. He's a very knowledgeable resource. So he made an amazing website. It is $10 a month, so it's a subscription thing, and basically based on your weigh-ins and your check-ins, it will automatically automatically make adjustments to your macros. Now, whenever it first came out, I immediately got on there, I put my own stuff in there, and there's so many people and clients that have been getting really great results from it. So I really do suggest that. It's a great cheap option, especially if you don't have a coach. The very first link in my description box will be a link to that site. So just click that if you want to have adjustments to your macros. Tip 5, people ask, what foods should I use to hit my macros? I think most of your diet should come from whole, nutrient-dense foods. However, you gotta have the fun foods in there too, the foods that you enjoy. There are no good, there are no bad foods, but things you need to be conscious of. You need to make sure to get your micronutrients in. Those are your minerals and vitamins. Make sure to get your fiber in, and then from there, hit your protein, carb, and fat, your macro goals. So just make sure you do that. Also pay attention to your specific food sensitivities. I know for me, there's certain things that I just don't feel good when I eat them. Maybe I'm a little bit extra bloated after I eat it, so I personally just stay away from it. It's not bad, but me personally, my body doesn't do well with it, and that's going to be different for every single person. So figure out what that is for you, but focus on your micronutrients, your fiber intake, and then your macros. Number 6, should I have an untracked meal? This means just going out and having a meal without tracking the macros. Other people call it like a cheat meal, but I don't like to call it a cheat meal because then you feel like you're doing something bad. It has like a negative connotation, and it's not bad. That meal should actually be a part of your program, not something that you're cheating on. I absolutely recommend it, especially if you are a lifestyle client. I think 1 to 2 meals a week that you're not tracking is great. I think it keeps you mentally sane. You gotta remember, while you're chasing your fitness goals, you have to allow yourself to be a human, to have some balance and some moderation with it all. Now, the only time I would say not to do that is if you're someone that has zero self-control, zero moderation, and it actually does worse for you. For example, there are people that will go out and say, I'm gonna have an untracked meal, and they go out and have the meal, and once they have a little bit, they're like this beast that gets unleashed, and they just go crazy with it all, and it becomes unhealthy for them. Whereas if they had just stayed on their diet, they would have fit some fun foods into their macros, and they would have been happier and stuck to their diet that way. So you have to really know yourself. For me personally, I love incorporating untracked meals. I think it's glorious. I think food is life, and it's part of living and just being a balanced, healthy individual. So if you can do it, I would absolutely recommend doing it. Now, if you're on a bikini prep, your coach will tell you whether or not to do that. I personally have tracked refeeds when I'm in bikini prep, meaning once or twice a week, depending on what my coach says, I'll have tracked meals where basically I just get a lot more carbs on that day. My fats and my proteins are lowered a little bit, so I just kind of go crazy with some carbs that I track and weigh. The last tip that I want to share with you guys is the question of, do I have to track macros forever? I get this question a lot. People are like, okay, well, once you start, do you have to track macros forever? And Emily, are you going to track macros forever? I didn't track macros my whole last improvement season. And the reason for that is because I've been tracking macros for a few years now, and basically got to the point where literally I would take the creamer for my coffee, the same creamer I always use, and I'll pour it in, and I'll go like this. Exactly perfect every single time. Same thing with egg whites. Same thing with Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I can grab a handful and I'm at 28 to 30 grams, which is a serving. I've done it so many times that I know portion sizes, so I can still eat my same diet and I can still have the same portion sizes and guesstimate and be pretty good about it. Now, even if you're not guesstimating, I recommend that everyone tracks for a period of time, simply because of the knowledge that tracking macros will give you. You'll have more education to make more informed choices in the future. So that, say that you're at an airport and you want to get a snack, you don't have to look at the, Ritz crackers that are baked as a bad snack. You just look at the macros and you say, oh, they're a little bit higher carb, lower in fat, you're moderate in fat and low protein, so I'm gonna eat that, and then I'm gonna do less carbs a little bit later. You're just able to portion things out, better. So I would recommend everyone tracks just for a period of time, just kind of gain the knowledge, the information from it, and then go on and make informed and educated choices in the future. So that's gonna wrap up this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched all the way through, make sure to give it a thumbs up if you don't mind. I would really appreciate that. Comment down below something that you thought was helpful, or if you have any tips that you want to share with the community. Remember, we're stronger as a community. I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you.